Okay, Magic Round is done for another year with the NRL. Some very interesting scorelines. Only one real blowout scoreline. A lot of close games. One game goes to Golden Point. Sin Binnings is the talk of the round, and the hip drop tackle as well is the talk of the round. Now, some big stories coming out of this. A lot of injuries. I didn't get to watch every single game. I missed the Raiders, Bulldogs and Sea Eagles Broncos games because of my day job where I was working. Obviously the time differential between here in the UK and Australia meant that I couldn't actually watch those games, although I will rewatch them later on at my leisure when I'm a bit less stressed, probably after work later this week. But the Raiders beat the Bulldogs 24 points to 20. They were down to 11 players at one point, 2 sin binnings including Papali, hip drop tackle, feisty game. There could be some lengthy suspensions coming out of this one. Bulldogs, I think they're underrated. They've shown that they can compete. They don't have any give up in them. They fight for everything. Their attack is starting to click. They're playing a lot better than in previous seasons. Cameron Serrano is the right guy to lead this team forward. Don't be surprised if in the second half of the season, especially through the Origin period, they pick up some more wins, make a push for the top 8. Raiders, likewise. I think the Raiders are going a little bit under the radar. Yes, they're a team in transition, and as a Raiders fan, I can accept that we're not the team that we were in 2016 or in 2019. Team in transition. There are some ageing players in key positions, but also some good young players coming through at the same time. It's just getting that youth and experience balance right. With Ricky Stewart signing his contract extension, I think until 2029. I'm not sold that is the right idea personally myself. I do think at some point in the next year or two, maybe a fresh voice on the bench in the coaching box may be needed. But the CEO and the board seem convinced that Ricky Stewart's the right guy to lead this team through the transition period. However, both these sides could be dark horses to climb up the ladder. I think the Bulldogs are trending in the right direction, even though some couple of recent close defeats have gone against them. The Sea Eagles Broncos, I have concerns about the Sea Eagles. They lose 12 points to 13 to the Broncos. Their season's starting to stutter a little bit. Yes, they are missing players through injury like Tom Trbojevic. That is a concern. Their win percentage without him in the side is a lot less. They are stuttering even with him in the side. There's a few missteps. We'll see how they do through the Origin period. Of course, Josh Schuster has now been released with immediate effect, so he's off the books. So Schuster, that situation's dealt with. But with the Sea Eagles right now, there is some stops and starts there. Broncos, a few years ago, they lose this game. It shows the growth that they've had in now winning these tight, scrappy games where in previous years they would have not had the experience or the ability to get over the line. They also have some key injuries at the moment. So two sides, again, injuries. All the teams playing have been decimated by injury this season, but that's unearthed some new talents. Broncos edging that one 13 points to 12 in Golden Point. Titans, Knights, big talking point was Kelly's try. A try. It's been disallowed by the video review by the bunker. You can't clearly see his hand fully leave the ball. It's an awkward one. There's a lot of arms and legs. It's not, for me, clear and obvious. I think that bails the Knights out. The Knights were winning this game, and then suddenly the Titans blitz them, and then the second half the Knights have a comeback. A seesaw game. Titans, well, they are struggling on the ladder. They're near the bottom. They've got their attack working now, but missed kicks also have cost the Titans. They could have won with the kicks they missed. The Knights scraped by with a 28-24 win. But there will be some cause for concern with the Knights as well. Although, in saying that, in attack, when the Knights clicked, they looked really good. But defensively, some frailties there. Titans, likewise, but both sides dealing with a lot of injuries. In fact, the Titans don't have any halfbacks at the moment. They had 3 hookers on the field to complement their spine. They have no halves. They're all injured. Sharks, Roosters. Sharks have just set down their premiership credentials with a 38-30 win over the Roosters. Really impressive win. That first set, where from the kickoff they run it and they score off the first set of play, was fantastic. Set us up for a fantastic game. It did seesaw, but the Sharks now are setting down a really solid case to be one of the favourites for the Premiership. They've beaten the Storm, they've beaten the Roosters. They do have some injuries and suspensions impacting the side. They haven't got their strongest forward pack on the field, hence why Hazleton is now starting prop. Hamlin, Uele and Rudolph, for example, unavailable. The Roosters, Much like the Sea Eagles and the Knights, a little bit inconsistent. Some concerns surrounding their defensive side of the game. But again, they look pretty good in attack when they can get phases together, but defensively, slightly concerning there. And then we get to the Bunnies Cowboys. South Sydney keep losing. The Cowboys were also coming off a losing streak. Cowboys end their losing streak in a scrappy 28-22 win over the Bunnies, but the issues with South Sydney continue. The Cowboys were too good for them, and if the Cowboys played to their potential, they could have put 50 or 60 past them. Cowboys are stuttering, much like the Roosters and the Sea Eagles, stuttering a little bit. They've had this bit of a poor run of form. They are lacking a bit of confidence, but an unconfident, stuttering Cowboys side had too much for the Bunnies. Their losing streak continues. They look dead certain to get a wooden spoon at this point. Can't see where they can get a win from. They came up against a very vulnerable Cowboys outfit and couldn't get the job done. There was some improvement, I will admit that. There was some improvement with their attack, but they're still averaging the fewest points per game and they're conceding the most points per game. And now that's, I think, 9 times out of 10 they've conceded 28 points or more, which is a record. That is the worst defensive start to a season ever since the university team in the 20s. So they really are putting up some really worrying defensive numbers, but they didn't concede the most points this weekend. That is for someone else. Warriors beat the Panthers 22 points to 20. Another side coming off a lengthy losing streak is the Warriors. They've lost a lot of close games. They finally win a close game, 22 points to 20 over the Panthers. Some concerns surrounding the Panthers. Injuries are starting to take their toll now. Obviously, Cleary's out yet again with that hamstring injury. He's going to miss a lengthy period of time. They're not the side. I think the weaknesses are starting. The cracks and weaknesses are starting to show. There's some hope for the other teams in the competition that the Panthers will not win 4 in a row. They are starting to look tired as well. Warriors, again, decimated by injury, but character show through today. Important win, ends their losing streak, gives them a bit of confidence that they can win without players like Sean Johnson in the side, for example. Important win, considering what they did last year. Second season syndrome, really. They have not hit the heights they did last year. But they have lost a lot of close games. When their attack clicks, it looks fantastic. Again, some worries defensively, game management, things like that. Panthers, injuries and fatigue are starting to rack up for the Panthers and their depth. They have made a few interesting decisions when it comes to letting depth players go who could have assisted them while players are out through origin or injury. The origin period, they could really struggle. I think I do worry about the Panthers this season, but it does give fresh hope for the rest of the competition. The Storm 48 points to 16 over the Eels. They blitzed them in the second half. First half was a lot closer than the play actually suggested. The Eels stuck in there, hung about, but second half the Storm ran riot. Completely decimated the Eels. The Eels are missing a lot of players. So are the Storm. And of course then you also have Munster and his groin injury. There are some concerns with injuries with the Storm. They had a very makeshift spine by the end of the game with Wishart and Anderson in the halves at one point. Anderson's a winger and he's dealt their third or fourth choice winger. So when you've got depth players playing out of position and they can still put 48 points on a side, that tells you that they've got a good thing going at the Storm. Admittedly, they lost last weekend to the Sharks, but the Eels, no match for them. The Eels are plummeting down the ladder. Their season's unravelling very, very quickly. They need Moses back as soon as possible, and some other players, and Gutherson as well. They're missing some key players. They were all over the place. The second half, they were just ripped to pieces, couldn't deal with the speed of the play the ball. They would be dominated in the contact area and the tackle. They couldn't shut down the offloads. They were all over the place defensively. Then we finally finished with the Tigers Dolphins. The Dolphins win 24 points to 12. The Tigers, they're in games, they show moments where they're the better side for periods, and then ill discipline. They had 2 players sin binned as well. Both centres, Naden and Olin, were both off. One for a head contact, one for a hip drop, both off. discipline is costing the Tigers. It's not effort. It's not for the lack of trying. It's their discipline is letting them down. Dolphins, I think they could be again another dark horse to do something in the top 8 this year. Although this time last year they're in a similar position, fell away. They are showing a little bit more this season. Some of the additions like Farnsworth, for example, I think have added to the side, and some of their younger players like Bostock, for example, have had that extra year of experience now. So they're starting to get their balance right. They have got some injuries and players missing, which is frustrating, but they are starting to get things right. And the Dolphins are continuing to grow in the right direction. Tigers, still frustrating. Eels, their season's fallen apart. The Bunnies continue to lose, even against a misfiring Cowboys side. Sea Eagles is another side as well that I'm concerned about. Big stories coming out of this. The injury list continues to grow. So both, not just New South Wales, but also Queensland are going to have some serious selection issues. A lot of injuries to key players who were selected last year. It's going to be interesting to see what the state of origin lineups are for game one, with the amount of origin level players out injured at the moment. It's going to be really interesting. It could really open up the origin series. Obviously, it's Madge Maguire's first origin series as head coach of the New South Wales Blues. He's going to have some really tough decisions. He says he wants to pick on form, but players who are in form are going down injured. So we'll see what happens there. Also, I forgot to mention the Dragons had the bye round this weekend, so we'll see if they come out and win after the bye or lose after the bye, because the bye round teams, some of them tend to struggle. It'll be interesting. The Dolphins had moments in the game today, for example, where they looked a bit rusty, but they still managed to outscore the Tigers, 2-1 basically. So the Dolphins at times look really rusty, other times they look free flowing. So sometimes that bye round can have a negative impact. But there we go. So that's the Magic round done. And we'll see what the origin period brings us, because, as I say, the injury lists are piling up for every single team. Multiple players who could be selected for origin are unavailable because of injury. And then off the field, we're having players arrested for domestic violence, drug distribution, sexual assault. The off-field antics continue, which also makes more players unavailable. So it's never a dull day in the NRL. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and we'll have some more content for you very, very soon.